Assalamu alaikum everyone. I am in Turkey. Right now I'm in the city of Istanbul. That was called once upon a time Constantinople. And this city was taken in 1453 by Sultan Muhammad al-Fatih. So right now I stand in front of one of the most historic sites in this city, and that is the famous Hagia Sophia. Okay, this was the largest church in the world once upon a time. It was the largest standing structure, indoor standing structure for more than 1,000 years. And you can see how giant a structure it is. It is behind me. The minarets were added later on by the Ottomans once they took it. And after Sultan Muhammad al-Fatih took the city, it was made into a masjid. Okay, this church was taken by treaty. The Sultan actually bought the space from the Christians and gave another church to the Christians to function from. So this great church became a great mosque. Okay, so this particular building was completed in the year 537 CE by the Roman Emperor Justinian, and this was his masterpiece. So huge an achievement this was that when he walked into the structure upon its completion for the first time, having looked at what he had created or his architects had created, he said, "Solomon, I have surpassed thee." In other words, Solomon, I have basically outdone you in architecture, in construction. He was referring to the Temple of Solomon, even though he hadn't seen it, but he had heard about it from earlier sources that the structure of the first Temple of Solomon was a huge, magnificent structure, and he could not imagine that it would be something more magnificent than this behind me. So this very building, everyone, you must pay attention, is older than the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Prophet was born in the year 570. This was completed in 537, almost 40 years before the Prophet was born sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this structure is still standing to this day. Later on, what you see, like these blocks in front of the building, they were put here by the famous Ottoman architect Mimar Sinan. He put this structure there, or these bricks, or these blocks, not bricks actually, blocks, big stone blocks there to support the building, because Turkey is on a fault line. You may have heard about this recent big gigantic earthquake that killed more than 50,000 people. Turkey is on a fault line. Many earthquakes happen here. So to protect the building from earthquakes, he put this mechanism, this defense or this protecting mechanism there. You can see these big pillars or big support blocks he has put, and then minarets were put next to it. But if you go inside the building, it still has that old touch. The pillars, the pillar heads are still from the Roman period, and the building is still very much in its original state. It's a masterpiece. One has to come and see it, and it's a masjid now. It is a masjid. Okay, once upon a time, a giant, magnificent tribute to the Christian civilization is now a tribute to the Muslim civilization, right? So this is a very important place for everyone to visit. And on my left, if you can see, that's where we have the Topkapi Palace, where the Ottoman sultans lived for nearly 400 years until they moved to another palace in the mid-19th century called the Dolmabahce Palace, right? So this palace is where Sultan Muhammad al-Fatih and subsequent sultans lived with their wives and their, their children and their families. Sultan Suleiman, Sultan Salim, and before the Sultan Bayezid II, the son of Sultan Muhammad al-Fatih, all of them lived here. Even the famous Hurram Sultan or Roxolana, she was here. And this is where all the decisions would be made, in this palace inside. This is where the public hall of audience was, and this is where the sultans would issue the decrees and appoint governors and declare wars on crusaders and even fight against the Holy Roman Empire, the Habsburgs at that time. So there's a lot of history I can discuss and talk about, but for now, just a glimpse into the history of this region. We will be doing these tours in the future. I strongly advise you to go on halalgetaways.com. Halal Getaways, actually Google Halal Getaways. It is an organization that organizes these trips, and Tazkiya tours. Also check out Tazkiya tours. You will see a lot of these tours coming up, and check out my social media accounts. I will be announcing dates very soon. on these historic tours to Spain, to Al-Andalus, to Turkey, and a lot more. Until then, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.